And we are back. Advancement Project is a civil rights organization that's dedicated to realizing America's vision of an empathetic, inclusive, and equitable democracy. Through their Opportunity to Learn program, they empower grassroots movements to scrutinize, uncover, and reform policies contributing to the criminalization of students and resist the privatization of public education. Here now to tell us more is the Deputy Director of Opportunity to Learn at the Advancement Project's National Office, Tyler Whittenberg. And Tyler, thank you so much for being with us, my brother.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I know that you guys are engaged in some heavy work. And for those who may be not so familiar, walk us a little bit more through the Advancement Project.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, we're a civil rights organization that's for about 25 years have been fighting to uplift and empower communities of color throughout the United States, particularly focusing on certain issues like voting rights, policing in general, and then, of course, the Opportunity to Learn program focuses on ending the school to prison pipeline and ensuring a public education, a quality public education for all students.
And when we talk about the school to prison pipeline, we'll talk there first. Obviously, education is at the forefront of what you are tackling. We look at so many of our young people right now, and the system is broken. And when we talk about the system being broken, I know some of the things that you do is really highlight and bring awareness to what needs some fixes. So as you look at the school to prison pipeline, give me your perspective.
I mean, it's in a dire state. I think, sadly, we have, just as many students being funneled into our youth punishment system and our adult punishment system as we've ever had. And so, when we talk about the school to prison pipeline, we're talking about really a set of practices and policies that make it so that students are more likely to go to jail or do not detention by going to school and staying at home. We're talking about systemic underinvestment. We're talking about really not nurturing students, not providing them with the space where they can be vulnerable. And then when they are vulnerable and maybe they do the same things we expect of them as adolescents, we're meeting them with the hand of the law and with detention and not with caring hands of support. So one of the major issues we've been working to address recently is really the issue of school policing. We know that police in schools and the practice of policing students is the primary driver of the school to prison pipeline, forcing students from the classroom into the youth and then adult justice system simply for existing, for trying to learn, and in some cases maybe for honestly making a mistake. And so what we want to do is help our grassroots partners create a liberatory education system where students are lifted up, where they are supported, where they have the opportunity to grow with each other and with supporting adults, and where they are not seen as criminals, as threats, as someone who is likely to commit a quote unquote crime, but as someone who is simply existing and in need of our care.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
and to my knowledge, you took matters into your own hands. You actually formed what was called Action Camp, and that is a program that's really designed to really addressing this particular need. Talk to us about Action Camp and how that came about in the journey.
sure. So we've always supported, as I mentioned, these grassroots organizations that throughout the United States that are working with youth of color to lift up their demands. And one of the major roles Advancement Project plays is bringing all these organizations together so that they can learn from each other, so they can develop skills. For one, identify the skills they need to reach the demands of their youth, and then to actually learn those skills together. To even look at the data, look at the policies, and look at the trends that are going on, not just locally, but also nationally, so that they can all be better prepared to really end the school to prison pipeline within their districts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we partner real quick. We partner with the organization called Alliance for Educational Justice, which have about over 40 grassroots organizations within it. And so we're able to collaborate with them to bring these groups together. We do this about once a year, looking at 100 to 150 youth all coming together to learn.
Yeah. What about student interaction with police? Obviously, when you have that type of situation that is in the school system, it kind of ties the officer's hand in some ways, and before you know it, what could be just a regular occurrence at school has now turned into something criminal.
Absolutely. And especially with Black youth. We have a recent report out, the assault at Spring Valley, where we look at the instances of violence against uh, students of color in particular, at the hands of police officers. And we find that in the 372 instances of police violence against students, that over 85% of those students are Black. We find that roughly 30% are Black girls, and that of all the harm done to students at the hands of school police and school security guards, that even sexual assault is occurring. It's the third highest assault that happens amongst these students. And what it really shows is that not only are students at risk of being arrested and entering the system for age appropriate behavior, they're also at risk of their physical safety when they are in spaces with police officers. So what we advocate for and what the students are calling for is not just the removal of police from schools, but actually a end of that pathology of policing students, and really greater investments in things that we know support students and that are preventative in the first place, and that help the students enter a school with a positive school climate, not where they're seen as a threat. And really, they really militarize schools, and so we're trying to fight back against that as well.
I want to speak a little bit about the awareness and the public awareness, bringing people to the place of civic engagement on this matter. What's been the history for you and the work that you're doing there? Are you finding the public more and more and the communities more and more speaking out and really taking heart to these particular issues?
Absolutely. I think policing is a hyper local issue, and so is education often. And um, when Black parents and Black students raise concerns about police in their schools and call for greater investments, they're really ignored. While a group of white parents can raise a stink about a course, and then that course may be removed from the school. So the same issues of racism that exist in our communities around policing also exist in our schools around policing, and it's also reflected at the electoral level with school boards. So a lot of our work really tries to uh, give these organizations and the youth the capacity to confront the school board and really force them to make the right decision.
So, as we look right now, we understand that there is a problem with the school to prison pipeline. We know that that's real. When we look and we talk about trying to form advocacy and really addressing some of these things and things that people need to be paying attention to. Let's look at that for a second, because I want to look at some of the things that we do really need to be paying attention to in this school to prison pipeline. What can the public join in on to have a voice to help in this fight?
Well, so there's a national campaign for police-free schools. I encourage people to visit www.policefreeschools.org. On that site, not only will you see a lot of resources and even a map of these instances of violence that I mentioned, you're also able to learn about the history of school policing and why it's really harmful to our community. But also on that website is a long list of organizations, local organizations that are fighting to really empower youth of color. And I would implore folks to go take a look at that. If these organizations, if you live in these areas, I would encourage you to get involved. And of course, we want to put the students at the forefront. So anytime I'm speaking to adults or folks ask what can they do, it's always really to listen to the youth, to provide spaces for them to talk amongst themselves, for them to organize with one another and strategize with one another, and then we have to listen to them after they actually make those demands. So um, that's yeah, a key part of it is plugging into where you are locally and then listening to the youth.
Yeah, let me get your perspective on this, because many times we see the nation being run by a lot of people in youth. When I look at Washington, Capitol Hill, we talk about you got the old heads, the OGs, if you will, but the reality is there is that young adult population that really is infiltrating a lot of staff and helping with a lot of policy and advocacy. Talk to us about the power of getting youth involved early, because as we see in national civic engagement, that many times it's the youth that are leading the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is always the youth we should look to. Um, but when certain instances happen locally, as adults, we can kind of take this fear-based perspective and think, okay, well, what can we do to make sure they're safe? The truth is, youth will tell you what they need to feel safe in any given moment, and it's just up to us to then provide that and to really give some power to their words and to their demands. So at every level of government, I encourage folks to engage with youth and even give them some decision making authority. And so at the federal level, as you mentioned, far removed from the classroom, I think they have the ability to limit the use of funding. So just really encourage them to listen to what youth needs and really limit the ability of school districts to use some of the federal dollars to fund policing, to fund social media monitoring, to fund metal detectors and other things. I think this kind of fear-based mentality that a lot of adults bring can really be negated, and should be negated and overcome by the voices of the youth and the demands that they're making at the local level.
So I know you got the 6D strategy, and if you
That's
could
right.
talk a little bit about the 6Ds, break that
Absolutely.
down for us.
Absolutely. So, the National Campaign for Police Free Schools, we came together and brought all the youth together to think about what are the strategies that they are using to try to end the school to prison pipeline in their localities in the 60s. Is a result of that, and much appreciation to the organizers, Jonathan Stith and Maria Fernandez, for putting that together as well. But the first D would be to decriminalize the school building. Youth are youth, students are students. They should not be treated as doing something criminal when they are simply doing age appropriate behavior, and they are all in need of our support. So one, we want to decriminalize the school building. Two, we want to deprioritize the use of police altogether. Um, Oftentimes teachers will call a police officer to the classroom for something that is purely an issue of school management. And so we want to make sure that we have all the resources available, including restorative justice and transformative justice models to take care of those things. We also want to delegitimize this idea that policing actually makes schools safer. Research, time and time again, shows that policing actually creates a toxic learning environment that adds to a certain level of distrust amongst youth and adults. And the research also shows that there are many things we could do really at the base level that will help create safer environments, and we're just not doing that. We also want to demilitarize the school building. After some of these shootings, folks will say, well, the only way to stop that would be to have, not just an armed officer there, but also we need metal detectors at the front. We need cameras everywhere. We need surveillance everywhere to monitor the students. What this does is actually 100% take away from the learning environment and really make schools appear more like prisons. And that's exactly what we're trying to get away from. So we want to demilitarize the school building. We want students to feel safe and nurtured and really blossom in an area without the fear, the constant fear that's driven through criminalization of youth and the militarization of the school building. How many D's is that there? Do we Oh, we also want to fully dismantle.
Mm-hmm.
We want to fully dismantle the connection between education and criminalization. So we want right now there is a major intersection between criminalization and education. There's collaboration between school districts and law enforcement that make it so that students are even being put through things called a threat assessment. They're not looked at for what they need; they're looked at for the level of threat that they are. And a part of the that comes from this law enforcement type view, law enforcement type approach to how we support youth. So uh, we also need to completely just dismantle the connection between the justice system and the education system so that we can have a liberatory education system that we're demanding. And also, finally, when students step up and they actually achieve a demand, we need to really defend the students. We need to actually stand up for them and defend them against a lot of these right wing attacks uh, they're coming for their curriculum, they're coming for their educational spaces, they're coming for any sense of expression and identity. And so we need to also defend students and support them in all the ways. And also these 6 Ds can be found at the website again, policefreeschools.org, and encourage you all to take a look.
I want to get your thought about cultural competence when it comes to law enforcement. There seems to be that lack of, and even when you talk about those who may be your skin may not be your kin, right? There's this lack of cultural competence that really is plaguing many departments that plays out in essence in the lives of young people.
Yeah, so I think for us, it's not really a matter. It's not a matter of like how officers should be trained before they enter the school. It's really that they shouldn't be there at all. And I think the cultural competency piece it not only extends to those who interact with youth in a law enforcement capacity. It also extends to the teachers in the classroom, to the administrators, and even to that school board level. I think we need to put people in places, put people that are in a position of protecting our Black youth. We need those people to understand our Black youth, and as simple as that. Um, and so there's this kind of there's a myth rather that Black parents aren't engaged or they don't show up as much, and it's just not true. They're often not given the opportunities to show up, and then when they do show up, they're not listened to. So a part of that cultural competency piece is really fully engaging the community, the family members, and making a school that's also a safe space for them. Because when we militarize a school building and when we have all the security on the outside and the police on the inside, it's also a deterrent to parents and the family members to interact with their child within the school building. And so we really need to change that around, engage the community more, work with the community more, and involve our youth with people that understand their perspective.
Tyler, how do people get in touch with the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. Again, www.policefreeschools.org. There's a contact link there. You can reach out to us if there's any issues around school policing. Maybe you want some more information about the work we're up to. Feel free to reach out. And yes, and it's been a pleasure.
Tyler Whittenberg, been a great time talking to you, brother. Make sure you take care of yourself and have a happy holiday.
Likewise.
All righty. Take a quick break. Be back with more right after this.